You're listening to The Authenticity Show, where you get to eavesdrop on great conversations about health, creativity, and the quest for excellence. Your hosts are Carlos Casados and Satch Purcell. Our guest today is Scott Ware. Now, Scott Ware is the editor of Radiance Magazine, which is a free metaphysical and holistic health magazine, and he also has his own podcast called the Ware With All. Scott came over to my house, and he and Carlos and Satch talked about all manner of things spiritual, so open-minded skeptics, let's dive right in.
So I'm going to start, Scott, with a question.
Okay.
Now, I understand you are a producer, editor of Radiance Magazine.
Publisher and editor.
That's what I meant to say.
I understand.
Publisher.
Yeah,
publisher and editor of Radiance Magazine. How does one find themselves in that position? How did this happen?
Right. About a year and a half ago, I was very dissatisfied with the work I was doing.
Which was what?
Sales. And I've been spiritual for a while. Been involved even with an ashram in La Habra where I live for the last 5 years. And I said to myself one day, I'm going to start a spiritual magazine. And then I thought, well, I better Google it to see if there's anything out there now. And there was. And Radiance Magazine was out there, but just at 70 locations. And it was mostly a part of the Temple of Light Spiritual Center, which was being closed at that time. And the magazine was being closed. So I picked it back up. And now I've expanded it to over 650 locations.
Nice. It's quite a growth.
In the year and a half. Thanks. Mm-hmm. And it's in print form and digital. But in print form, it's at all these locations. It's the only one at what I call conscious locations. It's the only one at just about every conscious location in most of Orange County, Long Beach, a lot of Los Angeles, and now the Inland Empire. Mm. And what is it? What is it that it's directing people to? What is it radiancing?
Verb form.
Yeah. Right. It is... it's illuminating for people.
Wait a minute, is it illuminating or is it radiancing?
Let's get that straight. All of it. It's multidimensional. It has articles and ads written by people who are helping people further themselves on their life path, whatever that may look like. And that's what all of this is about. Radiance is out there helping people further themselves, but how do you further yourself? How do you get happier, or how do you live a better life, a more fulfilling life? And some people might say, well, you do what you want to do. Okay, well, actually, that's easier said than done. A lot of people have a hard time doing what they want to do because actually they have dreams all the time that they're not pursuing, not following, and then they have a list of reasons. Mm-hmm. And we know what those reasons, right?
Excuses. I mean reasons.
Right. Sorry, exactly.
Him.
And but there's reasons they're there, and it's no reason to be hard on ourselves. It's part of the human condition to accumulate these excuses and reasons. And let's not even, they're reasons, okay, whatever. But seeking help is such a valid thing to do. Seeking help from an esoteric acupuncturist. Which is, you go to acupuncture, but actually you get some energy healing along with it. You get some other things. Mm-hmm. And for people who don't know much about it, that's why I like having the magazine out there. It introduces them to all these different modalities, all these different natural ways that other people out there are helping people all the time. And the thing is, though, it's not widely known because people don't share it. Mm. After they get an excellent reading from an intuitive reader or psychic reader, whatever words you want to use, that changed their life. And I've seen it happen right in front of my eyes. And they just either they cried or they were hugging the reader, and it helped them. But they don't talk about it because they don't want to be seen as strange by their friends. Excuse me. In fact, they don't want to even post anything about it or share about it. Or they don't even want to when they see a holistic fair, a psychic fair is happening, they'll make a note to go, but they won't like it because they don't want their friends to see it. And I was that person.
They don't want to be algorithmed.
Mm-hmm. They don't want to be outed.
Yeah.
As a spiritual person, come out of the spiritual closet. Yeah. So the very first note from the publisher I wrote in the first issue of the magazine was about that coming out of the spiritual closet. And it happened like this. I knew I should probably do yoga. You get a little older, you're like, I've heard it's good for you. And I rode my bike for 10 years past this yoga studio, it looked like. It turned out to be an ashram, which is just a house set off from the street with a couple acres of property behind it. For 10 years, I rode past it. Finally, one day I went in and I started taking yoga, and it changed my life. Mm-hmm. Yoga, the breath work and all that just made me calmer, made me less argumentative and my family, it just made a difference everywhere. And I started getting more involved with them and doing some of the activities, and it's just a wonderful place. They're non-denominational, so anyone can come. It's they're just a spiritual place, right, in La Habra. And I would take pictures. I love to take pictures, but I would never post them because I don't want people to think I was turning Hindu. Because Hindus would go there, even though it's a spiritual place. It's not a temple. The Hindu temples are one thing. Ashrams, Hindu temples, you have a lot of rituals going on, but the ashrams are places where you learn what they mean and the stories behind them. And so anyway, I was taking these pictures, and I'm like, I really want to share them, but I don't want people to see them. So what I did was, there's a way you can just upload pictures into an album on Facebook where it's just in the albums, but it doesn't show up in your timeline. And so I'll put them there, and the people who I want to see them will be able to see them. But what I didn't know back then was when someone likes them, boop, they start popping up on your timeline, boop, 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 boop. And I would see that, and I would I would break out into a sweat. And I'd be, and then, so actually Facebook helped me because I got over that. I realized that.
Thanks, Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Because I realized the people who aren't into what I'm into, well, they'll just vibrate away. They'll just go away. And they'll just, Scott's in, I'm not in that. But the people who are interested will come around, will stay. And that's how it should be. It's not like it's going to be some situation in high school where you're being shamed, like some terrible fantasy, nightmare fantasy you have. People making fun of you or something. It's like, if you don't like
you Hindu,
you weirdo, you freak.
Spiritual freak.
Exactly.
Isn't it funny though how well indoctrinated that is in our deep into our psyches? You know what I mean? Like there's this instant shame that pops up. It's funny how that is.
It's J.P. Sears, right? Remember he was talking about being a weirdo recently,
yes.
like that thing that went around about underneath all your business attire, you're just all a bunch of weirdos.
Yeah, right.
Like it's the very same thing that makes you that you loved being as a kid.
Yeah.
Essentially, authenticity is what in my mind, I switched it with authenticity. It's like the real you. And then that very thing that you like to be is suddenly the thing that you're not supposed to be because you're worried that other people won't like you because you're being you. Then ultimately, if you really think about it, the things you like about others that you really adore, it's not their normal behavior. It's the stuff that makes them different that attracts you to them.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Why would you want to be normal? You know what I excel at? I excel at being normal. Isn't that cool?
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
you want to be like me?
Because we want to fit in. We don't. The Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You want to be accepted by the tribe. But the thing is, you didn't know that you were doing this. And a lot of people listening to this don't know they're doing it now. Perhaps you're pretending to fit in to something you don't even believe you're pretending, but it doesn't feel right. So it's a weird stress you put it, an anxiety you have.
Yeah.
And so if you can free yourself of that, you'll live an authentic life. And the people in your family, some of them, won't agree with it. Your
That's
friends.
for sure.
And in the spiritual community, we say they'll vibrate away, right? Because your vibration has changed. So they'll just move away. And the people who vibrate the same as you will be attracted to you.
That's a great analogy too.
Yeah, and it's wonderful. I sort of think that that shame of letting the real you be known is just sort of like a hangover from the Salem witch trials. It's like there's this idea that, well, if I'm really me, I'll be executed. It's irrational though.
There's a great meme going around that says, if you aren't doing what they would have burned you for at the stake before, then you're not really living today.
That's funny. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, those girls burned for our freedom.
Let me get this straight, Scott.
Okay.
You took over this this
magazine
that had basically 24 places where it went out.
70, 10 of them were libraries, so I cut those out. So it was really 60.
And now it's in 650 different places. But wait a minute. Isn't the written word dead? Come on.
You know, it's funny because I just posted that Barnes & Noble's opening 15 bookstores next year.
I did see that, by the way.
Yeah. So that's nice.
It is.
And, the thing is, in niches, it works. There are niches. How do you like to say it? Niches or niches?
Good question.
When
I have a niche, I scratch it. So that's all I know.
I've always said niche, personally.
Okay.
But I'm cool with niche.
Me too. Niche markets makes you sound very.
I always say
makes you
niche.
sound very sophisticated.
Okay, so but then is it an egg and mushroom quiche?
Yeah, quiche. Exactly. Niche quiche.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So if it's French and tasty and comes out of the oven, it's a niche.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, the printed word, when you read a sacred text, when you read the Bible, the Quran, the Kabbalah, when you read these sacred texts of any kind, people usually picture themselves holding it in their hand.
Yeah.
And you kind of, you like the solidness of that. Yeah. It has more resonance. Yeah, we're in a room of books. It's
Surrounded by books right now.
And granted, millennials don't. In fact, I was talking to a millennial the other day, a very smart one, who said, "Oh my God," and she's 27.
They do
"Oh my God,
exist.
Scott, I couldn't imagine carrying books to class. How did you guys do that?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Uphill both ways in the snow. That's
Exactly.
That's the other thing.
There's something interesting to be said about books. Neuroscience seems to indicate that holding a real piece of printed material is much more effective
It is.
for certain kinds of learning, right?
It is. It's more absorbing.
Yeah, more absorbing. And so the thing is like if you are holding a book, now we all grew up at a time when it was just books, and it would have been very rare to read off of a screen, right? But when
Except
you're
for
holding
Oregon
a book,
Trail as a kid, but that's it.
Oregon Trail.
sure,
Yeah.
But when you're holding a book, if you think about it, if you open up a book, you've got two pieces of paper you're looking at. There's 4 corners on each piece of paper, right? That makes 8 physical cues in space that assist your memory, that assist your ability to get through the material, right? Another thing about it, this is why the written print, print is so powerful, is that you physically can feel how thick it is.
Yep.
Was it in the front? Was it towards the back? Everybody remembers taking a test and they're like, oh, the answer, I remember reading that. It was in the upper right corner, like the last 2/3 of the book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because all those cues actually help you learn the material better.
Like spatial learning, you might call it.
Yeah.
Visual learning,
and it's actually more relaxing because it's radiating light. It's ambient light that's bouncing off. It's not emitting light, which is a very different thing. It's different for your eye, so it's better sometimes.
And they've also shown they showed you absorb it better, you test better.
Yeah.
The students test better.
Yeah.
Plus, they're saying also when you read things online in digital format, you tend to utilize less critical thinking, and you just believe it.
Yeah.
So the memes. So people, people need to be questioning. Okay, this meme that is challenging me. Where did it come from? And could it have come from a country that just wants to stir unrest? I'll never forget the first psychic fair I went to. I'm like, who are these people? What do these do? What's up?
It's hard to believe.
It's hard to believe.
It is.
That people can see things that you can't see. And okay, so some are clairvoyant, some are psychic, and these terms mean different things. Some it means you can see into the future. Some it means you can just see what's around you right now that you can't see. I'm telling you, I get amazed every other week because I'll get a reading, or I'll get a partial reading. Because I even one of my associate editors is one of the best psychics around, and she just wants to be a part of the magazine and help it in the Inland Empire. Krista Benson, shout out. So if you ever go to one of these psychic fairs, and they're great to go to because for like $30 you get 15 minutes or $25, 15 minutes with one of them. You get to sample them. I always recommend you record them. And most of them, if not all, let you record. Why not? Mm-hmm. And get a reading. And if you don't like them for some reason or you don't like how it went, you can try another one. It's relatively inexpensive. And you will find that you will get information that some people go to regular talk therapy for years, and these intuitive therapists, if you will, are giving you the same information in 15 minutes. And it's happened to me. Mm-hmm. And it happened to a friend of mine. He even posted it. It's funny, after Daniel Gutierrez, after he saw Terry Lynn Cansey, she
Can see.
Yep. Well,
Cute.
yeah. She goes by Cantlay, and Cansey is the name she changed it to. She goes by that. And she's a great reader. She uses tarot cards and astrology. And in 15 minutes or 30, she'll give you great information that will help you in your life. And it's funny because he's talking about her again, even though it's been 2 months since he saw her, because she gave him a lot of good information 2 months ago, and he posted something about how great it was. But she also gave information that was going to happen in 2 months, and it did. So when it did, he said it again, So amazing. It's happened to me too.
Well, I want to talk about that for just a minute.
Yeah.
I think people need to realize that we are seeing into the future. I mean, that's what the brain does. I mean, think about it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do.
That is what it does, yeah.
We literally do see in the future.
So, okay.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah,
and we're seeing the future.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
To bring this down to earth a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Right? This is why we can cross the street without getting hit by a car most of the time.
Yeah.
We are predicting the future. It's a very near future.
You're right.
We have
I love that.
very tangible things that we're looking at.
Yes.
We're looking at mass and speed, and but we are able to piece these things together to make a really good determination as to where something will be at a certain time. So,
True.
So that is very much a version of it. It's just a simple down to earth one that everybody uses all the time.
Yeah, and I want to also say that one doesn't necessarily need to accept someone else's explanation in order to explore the idea. So, for example, you could go to a psychic fair with a mind to exploring these ideas and exposing yourself to the ideas without feeling like you have to, quote unquote, drink the Kool-Aid and believe whatever anyone's telling you, or that you have to accept that because someone says they're talking to spirits, that they're talking to spirits. You don't necessarily have to believe that.
Right.
You could go with an open mind.
Exactly.
To have the experience and just see how it fits. Like, I'm in this place, and maybe this sort of psychic space, I guess, within myself, where I've been exposed to so much stuff that was esoteric, religious, mystical at one point, and now deeply psychological and metaphorical and hypnotic on the other. And to me, finding the connection points between these things, it helps me to help more people and to connect with more people when I do that.
Right.
I haven't, to be honest, really ever found anything that couldn't be put into a metaphor usefully, ever. And I've seen some pretty incredible things. I've also, as I've shared with you, Satch, been to some pretty amazing people who are self-described psychics who have told me some pretty incredible things. I have myself witnessed my own envisioning process surprise me at times. And yet I maintain a space of skepticism, even within my own experiences. I've fallen into a trance grabbing someone's hand before and told them all about their father and the sickness their father had, and seeing it, remote viewing this whole scene in detail.
There you go. Look at you.
And I would definitely consider that a remote viewing, clairvoyant experience.
You bet.
Partly kinesthetic, partly visual. And it was completely accurate. All the things that I had said, I had only known this gal for maybe an hour or something like that. And I had only just then been asked to do it. There's been moments. So I cannot deny that I have a subjective experience of something called a psychic vision. However, I still don't necessarily accept that there's only one explanation for what that is.
I'm going to introduce something, because this is something we talk a lot about on the show. Is we have a term that we use here: open-minded skepticism.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
And we are open-minded skeptics, and so this is exactly what we're talking about right here. Right? You should be skeptical, so long as your mind is open. Right. You should have an open mind, so long as you keep a healthy skepticism, and those two balance each other. Those are checks and balances. We need them.
That famous saying of just not so open that your brains fall out.
Yeah. Right.
What I would introduce to this as well is what your heart is telling you, because the brain isn't the only
Right.
Amen, brother.
Yeah.
And your gut.
Yeah, open-hearted skeptics.
Yeah, I mean, the process of asking your head, your heart, and your gut has been something I've been working with for years now, and it's very, very useful to ask yourself those questions. If you can get good at getting a separate manifestation of an answer, because some people it's all blurred together, but if you can get to the point where you really can truly ask your head, ask your heart, ask your gut separately.
I love that. That's great.
Well, and it's interesting because when you talk about the gut, you're talking about the body, and the body has a knowledge that the brain doesn't have, and the body has its own brain that we would do well to listen to more often.
And it's linguistic tricks because brain is body. Do you know what I mean by that? Like I see what you're saying, and I'm just sort of adding on to that, saying like,
sure.
I'm also noticing that there's this linguistic issue of how we describe things, and that's often the only difference between people is literally the way they're describing it. But it appears as an outsider that they're talking about the same thing in two different ways.
Yeah, it could be different conversations, could be semantics, but I believe, the gut's useful, but I believe that we have a higher self that we can access, like our soul, through the heart. But we're born, and unless you're born in Aboriginal or Native American or something where they're very soulful, they're very connected to the earth and to family and to each other, without all the artifice.
Yeah.
So most of us are born into that kind of world, into the matrix, and we're told this is what you do to act right, to look right, do the right thing, and we cement over, like a parking lot, we cement over our true needs, our true authenticity.
Yeah.
So we spend our lives getting back at breaking through the concrete of that parking lot we put over the earth of our bodies. I'm struggling for metaphor here, but to do that though, there is a guiding light. We all have a guiding light, and that's our higher self, and the higher self is always happy, always content, is eternal. In fact, not even eternal, as Muji would say, out of time. And then we have our ego making plans. But then what happens is, as we grow older, it could happen at any age, but we start to realize we're not happy, we're getting sick, we're depressed, we're anxious, we are stressed, and we're unhappy for some reason. And the reason generally is because we're out of alignment with what we came here to do. So many of us believe that we came here for a reason. We were born to certain parents for a reason, in a certain society for a reason, to accomplish something. And the journey and of course the memory is wiped, because if it wasn't, there'd be no adventure, no journey. And we're here to accomplish that, to have that discovery, those revelations, and then to live into it, which means going against what you came from. But then we need to also be thankful of where we came from, because if it weren't for that, we wouldn't have the contrast. And that's why we're in this dualistic existence, to have that contrast. Because if we're all up in, just, if you want to call it heaven, and we're all having a great time, or actually not even a great time, because there's no contrast to compare it to. You just are. You're a drop of water in the ocean, or you are the ocean. But until you're that drop of water, you don't know what it is to experience itself. So that is what many people believe is the reason for our existence, to experience and to enjoy the experience. And you can't do that until you unknow what you know of being the ocean and become a drop. So live, have fun, experience life, love it. It's okay to be selfish in that regard. When you are fully selfish and you take care of yourself, you will come to realize that other people's happiness will be inspired action that comes out of that. So it's not, So a lot of people think, oh, how can I be selfish?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to ignore the people. Well, for a moment, maybe, while you're figuring it out. But once you figure it out, the inspired action that'll come from that will be to do that. You'll be a great person. Trust me.
That's authenticity.
That's authenticity. You're not doing it to get other people to like you. You're doing it from your heart because it's in alignment with your soul, what you came here to do.
Well, we do have the gift, potentially, as human beings, to find meaning. And we are meaning-making animals. So we have that gift that we can apply to any situation, like looking for a silver lining. Behind every gray cloud is the sun. You can find and look for that. And that seems to be a good survival technique or
Do you believe you
process.
chose to be born here?
You know, beliefs like that are
Don't
things-
resonate with you?
They don't resonate with me very deeply. It's more like I'm aware of many different possibilities, and sometimes one fits a little more than others. But I've never really found something that just fits all the way, except for this sort of like meta understanding that we're here to live, as fully as we can, and to be who we truly are meant to be, and that only we know who we're truly meant to be. No one else really does, just us.
Yeah.
They can often, if they're through circumstance or through some other mysterious means, able to show us something that helps us along the way. We usually call those people friends.
Yeah.
And they enlighten us a bit. They give us, they keep us interested in our own enlightenment. They keep us interested in finding out more about.
But our
who we
greatest
are.
teachers many times are not the friends necessarily.
And that's another reframe, which I love. I mean, that's our ability to, again, find that silver lining, because some people just shoot those people.
Right.
Yeah.
You know
right,
what I mean?
right.
I mean, so what you're saying is,
Metaphorically.
or physically,
Yeah.
and that's the thing that is great, is that we can turn those things if we want to. We can look for, and it's often a good survival mechanism too. If you think about holistically, it certainly makes much more sense for us to find healing and healthy solutions than violent ones.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's important to note that in answer to your original question, Scott, how you answer that question will shape your life.
Exactly.
So that's what I do believe.
Yeah.
If you want to ask about beliefs, I believe that.
Yeah.
So I'm more likely to say that would be what I would call a meta belief. I have a lot of meta beliefs, or maybe a few meta beliefs that are important to me. And one of them is that belief is a tool, and that it shapes your reality. So that's pretty important to me. That's pretty much at the core. So I reserve the right to believe what I need to believe in order to achieve what I need to achieve.
Well, and I think we're living it now. I think we're doing it now, and that's why we're talking, and we're having this experience, getting together, the four of us, to do this. We, at some level, we're aligned with it. We know that this is what we're meant to do. Yeah. That's why we're here at 10:30, and having this conversation. We love this. I think, we're here to experience. We're here to have fun and live and grow and expand, and to know no limits, and just keep going and just keep experiencing. And if that's not happening, look at why that is not happening. What is it? What life is not worth living? The unexamined life is not worth living.
Right. Who was that again? The famous philosopher?
According to Plato, it was Socrates who said that.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, that the unexamined life is not worth living.
You're listening to The Authenticity Show with your hosts, Carlos Casados and Satch Purcell. Up next, Carlos and Satch continue their conversation with Scott Ware.
I think one thing that is really helpful with the whole mindfulness movement, is, we're just talking about, or you were just describing habits and routines, right? And so it's worth taking a moment to go and look at habits and routines and say, why do we develop them? What is the purpose for having habits? Why do I have a morning routine? Why do I have a bedtime routine? A showering routine, right? Because routines and habits are energy-saving mechanisms. We save energy by falling into habits, because to be very aware, to be mindful, requires a lot of energy.
So saving energy in that sense makes sense in a logical way, but in a living life to the fullest way.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. Now, so the thing is it takes a lot of energy to pay attention all the time. It's exhausting, which is why you start a new job and you're tired the first couple of weeks, and then you develop your habits and you're actually
I
not
would
as
suggest
tired,
it's exhausting because we haven't learned how to tap into the energy of the field. We're using our own only.
Right, exactly.
And it's a conscious process, not an unconscious process.
Yeah, exactly. And so the thing is
we're not used to that. That's a muscle we're not used to working.
That's the point. Yeah, that's the whole reason I mentioned that is
It's just
because
that it's unlearned.
Yeah, we have to develop it, and it takes a certain amount of strength to be able to enjoy being aware all the time.
That's why they call it a practice.
So, right, exactly.
Work it.
It's
Well,
gotta be there.
flow happens, or it springs out of having familiarity. When you have a certain sense of familiarity, you can slip into flow by allowing yourself to become fully absorbed in the moment. But if you don't know what you're doing, and if your mind is busy, it's unlikely that you're going to go into flow, because you're using such a conscious mind approach. It's not really going to happen.
When you talk about flow like that, it reminds me of Zen and the art of archery.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's because you're practicing something to accomplish something, and then when it comes to be the moment, because you've practiced it so much, you don't even need to do it. You
It's as
just
if it's
become
not
one
you.
with the target.
Yeah.
And then the arrow finds the target. You don't even remember releasing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's as if it's not you, because
Yeah.
the you that you normally identify as you is the conscious mind.
Right. When you mentioned duty the first time, I thought of one thing I think of is the person who feels a duty to defend their country and enlist in the army or the armed services to defend their country. And
That's
it's
tribal thinking.
Well, it's amazing because if you would politically, you would call me more liberal than conservative, certainly. But one thing I think a lot of liberals overlook is the people who largely defend the country at that level are those kinds of people, conservative mainly, who have this duty to defend the country. We've seen them, we've known them personally, and I admire that, and I think they were just born to be that. And maybe their last life they were a Roman gladiator, or they were, I don't know what, but they came here to do that, and I revere that. It's amazing, even though I don't agree maybe politically with someone.
Yeah, no, I get it.
It's very admirable.
It seems
admirable.
like and I think we're in good company to talk about it like this here, because we're pretty open-minded
And open-hearted.
and open-gutted. No, we're not open-gutted here.
The soul.
Yeah,
We
but
bare our
our
soul.
guts aren't open. Please do not open your gut in public here. We have to maintain some decorum.
Absolutely.
Okay, but open heart, open mind, that's all good.
Yeah.
But there's a point, at least in my thinking, where conservatism, liberalism, there's a happy place, if you wind back the clock, where you could have dinner together and drink wine together and talk about things and disagree and agree.
Well,
about
there was such
stuff.
a thing as conversation.
Yeah,
and the
dialogue,
art of it.
whatever happened to that.
Yeah,
And
and
kinda went out the window
Well, it's
lately.
funny because there was a movie called Bonfire of the Vanities that was based on a book by Thomas Wolfe, and there was this famous scene at the end where Morgan Freeman was a judge, and he basically told everyone in his courtroom, his New York courtroom, to shut the heck up, and he said, "Where is your decency? Where has the decency gone?" And he gave this speech on decency, and people have just forgotten it. And I remember when the internet was young, one of the things that got passed around at first was everything I know I learned in kindergarten. And that was a book by Robert Fulghum.
Yeah,
I
what
think
color
I've
is your
seen that.
parachute or something, right?
No, what this one was, like the first one was share. Like that was the first rule.
Okay.
The second one was clean up after yourself. Basic common sense thing.
Yeah.
That kind of were distilled from what we would call virtues, which is an old fashioned word now.
Right.
So, and then that went away. That seems quaint. Now it's like dog eat dog. Get what you can, because we feel we have people in office that are doing that, in public office. And we've gone so far away. Something like the word virtue seems so quaint. No one even says that word anymore. What is a virtue? Are we even teaching that in school?
I'm
what
so
is that?
old school. I just
Yeah.
said that earlier today in a conversation with somebody. Yeah, but I know what you're talking about. That's why I said we're in good company tonight.
Yeah.
This is like...
we need to start a new trend where it's considered totally badass to be able to handle tough conversations with eloquence.
Agreed.
Like it's,
That's a
it's
beautiful
it's the
idea.
new
Yeah.
the political eloquence badass training.
Yeah.
And you can do that. The place to do that is in public squares of some kind. And I've read some articles where that still exists in some cities. Like one writer was saying, "I'm a liberal, but I'm in the volunteer fire department in my little town, and I work with guys who have the totally different position of me politically.
That's great.
But we can talk and we can hang, and we get that we have differences.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about you, Carlos. We wear these bracelets. We wear crystals. We wear things, and that looks different to people. They're like, "What the heck is that? Your necklace you're pulling out?" Okay, it's you two. Okay, well, we're all just flashing.
Bora tribe, baby. Talk about tribal. Bora tribe in Peru.
Yeah, Shungite. Shungite.
Shungite.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So, and that looks different to somebody who, whatever.
Yeah.
That's not into that. But we should all be able to get along. And I think the pendulum swings that way, and it's going to swing back. And
The pendulum. Not to use a new age term, but, the pendulum.
Exactly, the pendulum. and the forefathers of this country were brilliant and or lucky to devise a system where it does swing, where it's a living, breathing kind of government. The checks and balances. It's imperfect, but the best we can find so far, and it's swinging back.
Yeah,
and
that's a great example. Oliver was talking about exactly that, the pendulum.
Yeah.
He was talking about who's it? Was it John Kabat-Zinn? And you were telling me that he was suggesting that instead of the eagle, that the symbol for the United States should be the pendulum, because that's actually a meme that happens over and over again, and it has happened since the very beginning and continues to happen. Is that it swings massively, boom, 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 like you're saying, Scott.
Yeah.
And that's a much more apt, symbol metaphor for the United States.
Yeah,
because
but
that's
people
kind of
already think we're just this big swinging pendulum in the world,
we got the big swinging pendulum.
So, hey, Oliver Altine button in here. I just wanted to get this right. The quote was actually from Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And she said, "The true symbol of the United States is not the bald eagle, it is the pendulum. And when the pendulum swings too far in one direction, it will go back." So yeah, RBG. And I heard this on an episode of More Perfect, which is a fantastic podcast about the Supreme Court. Okay, back to the conversation.
So anyway, yeah, agree. Totally agree.
Well, now let's swing back, if you will, to spirituality, because pendulum is an awesome tool. Have you guys ever used it?
Yes.
I've seen it done. I've not done it myself, but
So I just got a great lesson in it, because there were times, and here's the thing, it's sort of also like, okay, so if you have a question to ask and you want to know the answer, our heads get in the way so often of the intrinsic wisdom that we have in our spirit, in our body, whatever you want to call it. And we can't hear it. We can, because this is so loud. The monkey brain is the lizard brain, whatever, is so loud. So we can use muscle testing, or we can use the pendulum, and it's all the same thing. Some people can you don't need the pendulum. You can just ask yourself, and then if you're sensitive enough, you just listen to the first thing that comes in your head. That's it.
Yeah. Ideomotor response is what they call that
there you go.
in psychology and hypnosis, things like that.
Sure. Yeah. And someone just taught me the other day, don't forget to flick your pendulum. Now, is this a PG family? No, I'm just kidding.
No,
this
it's
is
not.
a family show?
You
It's
can
not.
say
Okay,
it.
so we can
You
say
can-
flick the pendulum.
You can say what you want.
Yeah.
Okay. Boy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Give this
good.
man some whiskey, and you see what
I'm flicking the pendulum. Okay.
he starts whipping out his pendulum, and
Okay.
it gets crazy.
Well, that was pretty interesting when you guys whipped out your necklaces. That was very.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is an actual cross section. This here, can you guess what that is?
I can't. No, I can't guess.
It is
what
an ayahuasca.
Dude.
So this is the ayahuasca
So you keep it under
vine.
glass when an emergency
It's not under glass.
break?
Yeah, break glass, exactly.
Okay.
No, it's just polished. It's not under glass, but it looks
Okay.
like it. Yeah, it's just polished. But it's an ayahuasca vine, and it's a citrine
Okay.
underneath it. But yeah, it was
Where were we?
pendulum.
Swinging
There we go.
Back and
Swinging.
forth. Pendulum.
Okay. I was taught recently that if you flick it, that'll get you. So, for instance, for people who don't know, you can take almost anything on a chain with a weighted end and get the answers. It'll swing, let's say, back and forth for yes, sideways for no. And you can ask, okay, is my name, and you state your name, and you see which way the pendulum goes. You hold it a certain way so that it's sort of bent in your fingers. You don't just hold it like this. You sort of, yeah.
Oh, so that your
Yes.
that your ideomotor movements will influence it. Okay,
That's
that
right.
makes sense.
You're not overriding it with your ego brain, giving an answer that you think it should be. And any answer you want or any question you want to ask, you have it right there. And it's sort of the same thing as this. This is the easiest way, is muscle testing when you're just standing. Ask yourself, what'll happen is a yes generally is you'll start leaning forward.
Right.
A no is leaning backwards. And so ask yourself, okay, is my name this? And you'll usually find yourself leaning forward. If it's some people's back is yes, and the opposite. And you start testing it on some things you know, and then ask us some things you don't know. Or even some people at the grocery store or in the refrigerator, they'll say, should I eat this now? And your body will lean forward if you should, and the body will lean backwards if you shouldn't. And your body knows what you should. So that's
very interesting.
That's a great diet.
True. That's very interesting.
I don't know what you do, the pendulum diet, your muscle test diet? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some people, and I've had this experience of something just sort of flying out of my hand. And it was a twitch, obviously, but at the time I thought about, you know what? I'm not going to eat that.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I just sort of went with it.
You listened.
I could have
You
just
paid
said,
attention. You
well,
were
that was
present.
a random thing, but I don't think it was.
See, okay, now what you just said was very interesting. He just talked about a sign, a sign from the universe,
Or
your
from my body.
Body, okay,
Yeah, my deep mind.
that you should not eat that. And most people will discount that because they don't know that the universe is conscious and is helping us, is in league with us.
Yes.
And if you are just open and present in the moment,
Yes.
it will tell you things, or your body's telling you things. You toss that away.
Yeah.
Don't eat that.
A couple of examples that were even more intense than that. I got to go in my car. I was going to go in to see a client, and I was in a hurry, and I was about to get in the car, and I was about to sit in the seat, and suddenly my body froze.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell? And I looked down, and there was a needle face up where I would have sat down.
I see your finger pointing up, so it's like I can
and it
imagine.
was like, at the time, I saw that as a very negative omen, or as a potential intentional thing. There was somebody around me that had some very negative intentions around me.
Perhaps wanted you to be hurt.
Yeah, and so it was either they placed it there and they thought it would be like great if I sat on it, or it was literally just some kind of manifestation of some other thing. But I caught it, and I can't tell you how many times I've caught things like that. I've caught bits of glass in food, bits of metal in food.
Yeah.
I've almost sat on needles. I was having a conversation with somebody when the blade of the fan above me on the head flew off, and I maintained the conversation looking at them eye to eye, raising my forearm, and blocked the flying blade.
Wow.
And continued to finish the sentence while it flopped onto the ground.
Well, you're just a badass.
That was like
saying.
Jedi shit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I would say that we were talking about unconscious, we're talking about your deep mind signaling you when you're connected. Seamus tells the story about a mutual friend, John, trying to stab at him with the sword, and he raised his teacup and deflected and it was just a perfect Taoist moment,
Totally,
and it was classic, because Seamus was just smiling with his big teeth, and just ding, and he just kind of deflected the sword stab.
It was just perfect,
and it was just kind of
He was present,
very present in the moment. Yeah, it was just
yeah.
But I think ideomotor responses are something that I use from time to time. I used it earlier this afternoon, this morning with a client who had let's call it an anxiety or a phobia or something like that. And I helped him to go into trance, and then I asked his body to tell me what a yes is, what a no is, and what an I don't know is. And I literally just asked his unconscious mind, will you clear this for him? And he said, yes.
Oh.
I said, okay, go ahead and do it, and let me know when you've done it. When you do it, give me a yes. Okay, and it was done. Cool. Is it completely done? Great.
Nice.
And he gave me the signal. So then I said,
Nice.
okay, so can we come back out now? And we came back out. And of course, I asked him about it. Of course, the phobia was gone, because he went deep enough where his conscious mind could be bypassed, and he could just literally ask his unconscious mind to just take care of it. So it was gone.
Beautiful. Good work.
But in a way, that's the same to me as pendulum, because it's the body has a response, and it can give you a twitch or a tension or a release based upon something that it knows. And scientifically, they have studied this for a while now. They've hooked people's intestines up, their heart, their brain, and their muscles. And they've shown them pictures that they either like or dislike. Their body knows before their brain does.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
It's amazing, the wisdom of the body.
Like a split second before. And so it makes sense that muscle testing, if you get good at it, would provide, at least, if nothing else, some useful information about how you feel about something.
Sure.
So the interesting thing about all this is listening, and whether you're listening to your intuition, which I believe is source, your connection to everything.
Yeah.
Listen. I mean, Einstein said either everything is a miracle or nothing's a miracle, and you can live either way. And I believe everything is a miracle, but it's the same thing actually. But I choose to believe everything's miraculous. And okay, so one thing I've learned being in this industry with Radiance Magazine is that I've learned that the keys to the universe were given to us, and they are to use as guides, and they are things that most people don't associate with that. And science is one, but tarot is another.
Yeah.
Astrology is another. Numerology is another. These are all things that were given to us, and I'm telling you, I got 3 astrological readings in the last year, and they were all the same. They described the same kind of person with the same pitfalls, that I could avoid or not avoid, and the same characteristics. They couldn't have been you guys. They were, for me, 3, and 2 of them were printed out for me. Natal charts I could just put up like this, and match up almost perfectly.
Wow.
Amazing. But the true gift is everyone has their own interpretation. So, and I don't mean wildly different. I mean, I got a different flavor from each of them. So each of them were beneficial to me. But that just showed me, that was confirmation that this stuff works. It's real. And it's, Sir Isaac Newton and all these other people who we know were scientists of their time.
Yeah.
Following the almanacs. And there's the reason. I mean, the planets are moving and they have, and everything's energy, and the planets have a certain pull, the moon has a pull and all that, and that has effects. And when you were born at a certain point and there's a certain alignment, that means something. And it's like these invisible wires all connected. And as they start to move, that moves your life. I don't know if you've ever done this, but there's a big, thick book you can get at the bookstore called, I think it's called the book, there's several of them, the Book of Numerology. And what it is every page is a different page of the year. So you can find your birthday.
Oh yeah, it's the book of numbers or the book of days or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's so fun at parties. So, I did this for years before I got in this industry. I would have these books and I'd say, okay, who wants their birthday read? And we'd all sit around and people, I'm July 28th. Okay. And you'd read July 28th and you would nail that person.
Right.
80% of it was dead on to that person. It had the astrology, it had the numerology, and they're like, whoa. And everyone else is saying, yes, that is so you. You are that. You're the. It's amazing. And what's interesting is, so I'm 52, and I remember reading in those books for years. It said at the age of 51 or 52, you would have this huge shift. And man, it was, I'm like, wow.
I want
to
kind of enter into this with a Niels Bohr quote.
Okay.
Niels Bohr, what a mental slouch he was, right?
Right.
He said, everything we call real is made of things that cannot be regarded as real.
That's right.
And of course, there was a context around
Well, the best things in life are invisible.
Yeah.
It's another way of saying.
Yeah. And quantum physics, and as obviously he was referring to, is it's pretty bizarre stuff.
And love,
And love, yeah, true.
Thing.
But I think more specifically, it's like these things that we consider matter, these physical things, are made up of very unsolid things, mostly space, right? As we've heard. I don't have the science background to know that, but that's what we hear, right?
Space and vibration.
And I want to say also that, and Satch, this about me, that I use astrology as a kind of guiding
light.
A guiding light, yeah, kind of a thing on my whiteboard that I consider, along with a lot of other things, along with biosomatics, along with NLP, along with a lot of stuff. And it's important to me. At the same time, open-minded skepticism involved, right?
Sure, yeah.
I don't necessarily believe that it's, as you said, like influences of rays or magnetism or light. It might be. I'm totally open to that possibility. I don't necessarily think that's what's influencing us. Sometimes I think that it's just an interesting idea to think about synchronicity, like Jungian style, like when Carl Jung was referring to how because we're in a closed system, that these things that we've noticed as patterns can be found when we look at our lives. We can look at our psychology. We can look at the choices we make and the basics of living life, life or birth, life, death, that there are things in common, these cycles and stuff. And that maybe as we find these matching patterns out there, there's something to what happens as our brains start to look for that over the course of time, as human beings who become wiser and wiser and then share their wisdom along the way and pass it down. So it doesn't surprise me, is what I'm saying, that 3 different astrologers had 3 more or less matching charts. That alone doesn't tell me that astrology is true. What it tells me is that the principles are well known by the people who form the charts, and that they would be terrible astrologers if it didn't somewhat match.
But they described things about me that did not apply to you.
And that's the key.
That was like, oh my God, that is so, in fact,
Right.
it was so embarrassing.
That's
because
the
it showed
important
my
part.
weaknesses in detail.
Yes.
That couldn't belong to anyone else in exactly this pattern, in exactly this way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally. The devil is in the details.
Yeah.
Right?
God.
Well,
I would say in this case. But I know what you
evil
mean.
is
You're
only
good expression.
evil is only live backwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
God is only dog backwards. But anyway, Daemon est Deus inversus. God is only the devil in reverse.
There was a story that Neil Donald Walsh wrote. He wrote the Conversations with God books, and he wrote this story called, or he channeled the story called The Little Soul.
Yes,
And-
I love that. Oh, God, that's a tearjerker. Love
Yeah.
it.
Well, and it was-
Little Soul in the Sun, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Do you know? Maybe you know.
I know the story, yeah.
Okay, because the version I know,
beautiful.
I don't remember the book that he wrote, but I remember the story he told in the Conversation with God book, and it was a soul came forth
Out of the light.
Okay. Yeah, help me with this.
Yeah.
So God and the angels and everyone was sitting around or in holding court or whatever, and the soul came forward and said, I'd like to go down to earth. Oh, you're not happy here? No, yeah, I'm very happy. It's all great. Everything's so wonderful. I have everything. But I've heard of this thing called forgiveness, and I would love to experience forgiveness. And then God said, okay, that's great, but you'll to experience that, we'll have to send someone down with you to smite you so that you can experience forgiveness. And it'll require a lot of love from that person. And one soul stepped forward and said, I'll do it. I love you enough that I'll go down and smite you. And that's all I remember the story.
Yeah.
But that's the basic thing. So
And and
Go ahead.
just to add to that, I love you so much that I'm willing to go down and do this terrible thing to you that so that you can experience union again, to the separateness and the becoming whole again.
There you
the
go.
forgiveness part. And all I ask is that when I do this, please remember that we are whole, that we are part of this greater
Yes.
thing, that we love each other, that we're part of this bigger picture, and that I'm only doing this to help you. If you can just remember that. And
So
then, of course, the
profound.
little soul says, oh, I promise. Thank you so much. I promise I'll do that. I promise. And that's the really important part. That's the
It
part
is.
that really was, it kind of got me. Like, it kind of like,
yeah.
I could feel it in my heart. It just made me want to cry. Just
Yeah.
so beautiful as an idea.
So whoever did whatever to us, whatever bully, whatever aggressor in any way, shape, or form, that was our greatest teacher.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
To have us experience union again. That's why we're here. People say, why all the suffering? how else do you achieve union? I don't know why I
In
went
your
like
best
that.
Yiddish accent. Yeah, that's perfect.
I did it a few times earlier. So
Yeah, that's it's just so evocative when you do it that way.
I know it's very persuasive.
It is.
Yes.
It's very persuasive.
Boy. Well, thank you for inviting me here to your show.
Hell yeah, it was wonderful
fun.
sharing conversation and whiskey and vermouth.
Apple slices, dark chocolate, it's all great.
Vermouth.
Vermouth with grapefruit slices.
Grapefruit, yeah, it's amazing.
Tea.
Tea. Man,
Especially conversation.
absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
You've been listening to The Authenticity Show with your hosts, Carlos Casados and Satch Purcell. Very special thanks to our guest today, Scott Ware. If you'd like to get in touch with Scott, you can go to radiancemagazine.org, or you can check out his podcast, The Ware With All, 3 words, W-A-R-E, with all. This show was produced by Oliver Altine, that's me. Our theme music, which you're listening to right now, was also composed by me. Please remember to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're all over the place. Also find us on Facebook, check us out on YouTube, and you can find our website at authenticityshow.com. Thanks for listening and have an authentic day.